The Egyptian Museum buzzed in day final World Cup, Portugal with Mexican. Not with tourists, but with cheers. Portugal versus Mexico, World Cup final. Even ancient artifacts seemed to vibrate with the tension.
Goal! Magnificent.
In the security room, Ahmed, eyes glued to the screen, punched the air.
Come on, Portugal, don't let us down.
Beside him, Sarah, the tour guide, groaned. Mustafa, head of security, pretended disinterest. His gaze darted nervously between the door and the live feed displaying the stadium. Sweat beaded on his brow. He looked like a man sitting on a burning chariot. The final whistle blew. Portugal had won. Ahmed roared, ecstatic. Sarah slumped, dejected. Mustafa, however, looked strangely relieved. The next morning, the museum felt eerily quiet. The World Cup hangover lingered. Dr. Layla, the museum's sharp-eyed archaeologist, bustled through the Hall of Kings. Her keen eyes scanned the displays, a morning ritual she cherished. Except today, something was wrong. Terribly wrong.
No.
The pedestal, usually home to the magnificent statue of Horus, stood empty. A vacant space mocked her. Panic swelled in her chest. This was no ordinary artifact. The Horus statue, with its emerald eyes and golden wings, was the museum's crown jewel.
Mustafa, the Horus, it's gone.
She raced towards Mustafa's office, a storm gathering in her eyes.
Gone? Impossible. The museum was locked down.
Don't patronize me. This is serious.
News of the theft ripped through the museum like a desert wind. Staff huddled, whispering in hushed tones. The atmosphere thickened with fear and suspicion. Detective Alam, a man who exuded quiet authority and in 30 years old, arrived. His eyes, sharp as a falcon's, scanned the scene. He listened patiently as Layla, her voice trembling with indignation, described the missing statue.
The security system, was it functioning?
Alam stated, his voice calm amidst the chaos.
Of course, Detective. State of the art.
Yet the most prized artifact vanishes into thin air.
Layla glared at Mustafa, her suspicion a tangible thing. He avoided her eyes. His earlier relief had evaporated, replaced by a sheen of nervous sweat. The game had begun, and Detective Alam was a master player. Alam, a man who believed in methodical deduction, began his investigation. He surveyed the security footage. Nothing. The cameras covering the Hall of Kings had conveniently malfunctioned during the crucial hours. Too convenient.
Ahmed, I need to hear about your night.
He summoned Ahmed, the security guard. Ahmed, still riding the high of Portugal's victory, stumbled through his account of the night.
I didn't leave my post, sir, swear to God, except for, well, maybe just to grab some tea.
And the time?
Alam pressed, his voice deceptively gentle.
During the second half, I think.
Ahmed's eyes darted nervously. Alam noted the discrepancy. The cameras malfunctioned before halftime. Next, he called Sarah. Her alibi, too, had holes.
I was in the museum's library, researching for my upcoming tour on Egyptian mythology.
But the library's security camera showed no sign of her. Alam smelled deceit. Like the scent of incense after a prayer, it clung to the air.
Alam's interrogation of Mustafa was a subtle dance. He observed the head of security, noting the flicker of fear in his eyes, the trembling of his hands. "You seem on edge, Mustafa," Alam remarked casually. "The stress of the theft, perhaps?"
Of course, Mustafa blustered. This is a disaster. My reputation.
"Your reputation?" Alam echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Or something more?"
He pressed on, his questions like probes, seeking the weak spot in Mustafa's carefully constructed facade. He spoke of the security system, of the timing, of the impossible theft.
Mustafa cracked. He confessed to disabling the cameras, but only under duress. A shadowy figure, he claimed, had threatened him. He had no choice.
Alam listened, his face a mask of polite skepticism. He knew a fabrication when he heard one, and Mustafa's story stank of it. The truth, Alam sensed, ran deeper than a forced confession. It lurked in the shadows, waiting to be dragged into the light.
Section 6, the security breach.
Alam, a firm believer in technology, turned his attention to the museum's computer system. He spent hours, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, searching for the digital breadcrumbs of the crime. He found them in the security system logs. The system hadn't just malfunctioned, it had been deliberately deactivated, and the access code used belonged to Mustafa. Further digging unearthed an encrypted file hidden on Mustafa's personal computer. With the help of a tech specialist, Alam cracked the code. The file contained a single message: "The Horus for your daughter's surgery, no mistakes." The message was chillingly clear. Mustafa, desperate to save his daughter, had struck a deal with the devil. He had traded a priceless artifact for a chance at her life. The evidence was damning. The net was closing in.
Section 7, cornered like a pharaoh.
Alam confronted Mustafa. He laid out the evidence, the deactivated security system, the encrypted message, the lies. Mustafa crumbled. He confessed everything. His daughter's illness, the mounting medical bills, the desperate bargain he had struck with a ruthless art collector. He had thought he could pull it off, he had been so careful. But Alam, with his relentless logic and unwavering pursuit of truth, had outmaneuvered him.
I did it for her. I would do anything for her.
Alam felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly eclipsed by the weight of the law.
Love is no excuse for theft, Mustafa.
The arrest was swift. Justice, Alam believed, should be served swiftly, like a penalty kick finding the net.
Section 8, justice like extra time.
The trial was a mere formality. The evidence against Mustafa was overwhelming. He was found guilty and sentenced to prison. The statue of Horus, however, was never recovered. It vanished into the shadowy world of black market artifacts, lost to the world perhaps forever. Alam, though satisfied with the verdict, couldn't shake off a sense of melancholy. He had caught his man, but at what cost? A daughter had lost her father, a masterpiece lost to greed. He sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the sounds of the city filtering through the window. On the screen, the World Cup highlights played, the roar of the crowd a stark contrast to the silence of his thoughts. The thrill of the game, the drama of the win, it all felt strangely hollow now.
Section 9, case closed, game on. Winner Portugal on Mexico.
The case, like the World Cup final, was over. But for Alam, the memories lingered. The empty pedestal, the look of desperation in Mustafa's eyes, the bitter irony of a stolen artifact amidst a global celebration. He reached for his phone, his fingers hovering over Layla's number. He had promised to keep her updated on the case. He knew how much the Horus statue meant to her, to the museum, to history itself. He sighed. Some victories, he realized, were bittersweet. He had brought a thief to justice, but the true prize remained elusive. The game of cat and mouse might be over, but the hunt for the lost Horus was far from finished. And Detective Alam, like a seasoned striker, was ready to play on.